illness continues to distort my reality and it disempowers me.
Have you written books or you sort of promoted certain books or how on this point?
Initially, it was digital. Now it's acrylic on canvas. That time period was perfect for me to put everything together. And I published this book.
Welcome to Connect with Rohan Alwis, brought to you on Ideal Island from the studios in London. Joining us today from Manchester is a medical doctor who's turned artist, Dr. Shanali Perera. Welcome, Shanali, to the program.
Thank you, Rohan.
Iboan. I could see in very big letters visually verbalizing vasculitis. I'm sure we have a good story to hear to our listeners. Shanali, just before we roll out the story, talk about you and so on, where were you born, your childhood, schools, just roll on, please.
Thank you. Firstly, greetings to everyone from a rainy Manchester in the UK. I was born in the hill capital of Sri Lanka, Kandy, and I'm proud to call myself, well, not a fully Kandy Lamisi, but some partial Kandy Lamisi. But I grew up in Colombo. I went to school at Visakha, and I left school after my A-levels and went on to pursue medicine in the Manipal West Indies program. Before I go on to that, I have to tell you, I was only 6 years old when I asked my mother and father for a doctor set. So being a doctor was it was a childhood dream, and everyone who was working in our house had to come to my make-do clinics outside, where they had to pretend they had illnesses, and I would, give them fake prescriptions, etc. So just to give you an idea, this was like my, from growing up from my growing up days. So then.
So your parents were they from a medical background or the family for you to have a natural interest in medicine from a very young age?
My parents were not from a medical background. My mother's father was a GP, but I never met him. He had passed away when I was born. But from a young age, I met many doctors because I used to get repeated urinary tract infections. So I was in hospitals all the time. So I think that was why perhaps, that interest grew maybe. I don't know. We used to very slyly take prescription pads from our GPs, from the table. She knew I was doing this because I was running my own clinic,
So was this in Colombo somewhere or?
Yes, before we built the house in Navala, we were at Park Road. So my GP, those days we had proper GPs, who was your family doctor, who knew everyone. And so she would have her little prescription pad, and I would slowly take a few every time I go for my clinic. And that is how I think my interest in sort of becoming a doctor sort of bloomed, let's say. And of course, I did everything possible when I was in school. I was in every single club, whether it was astronomy or computer or interact or, photography, the art circle. So I sort of tried to do everything when I was in school. Did Bharatanatyam, played.
Including Bharatanatyam at Visakha.
I went outside school to do it, but then we used to have yearly concerts at Visakha to raise money for the Defense Fund.
I see.
My teacher was all Visakhian, so she did that. And then I played tennis. I played for school as well. And then I went on to find myself as a doctor. I guess I started off wanting to be a neurosurgeon after reading Robin Cook's books, because I was like, oh, I entered medicine thinking I'm going to be a neurosurgeon. And then, of course, I changed my mind many times. And I I was in a twinning program where the first 2 years, I was one of the first batches to start this problem-based learning, which was a very different curriculum to the standard way medicine was taught. So I did my first 2 years in Manipal in India, and it was twinning with the University of West Indies in Trinidad. Well,
So that's an interesting point you make for the benefit of prospective medical students as well in Sri Lanka, viewers and also internationally who may not necessarily be able to join a local medical school. If they got the right grades, etc., they could look elsewhere as well to qualify as medical doctors. Now, Shanali, tell us rather, how did you end up in the UK then as a medical doctor?
So after I graduated from the University of West Indies, I came back to Sri Lanka, did the Act 16. And while I was doing the Act 16, I worked as a pre-intern in the army in Colombo, in the army hospital. And I then told my parents, okay, I would like to go and do my postgraduate studies in the UK. I'll do my internship, etc., and I'll be back. And
Right.
so after I finished my Act 16, it took about 6 months to complete the exams. After I did that, I applied to the UK and came over here to progress with my, well, initially it was just my internship and then get back to Sri Lanka. But of course, I ended up staying here longer and pursuing my postgraduate studies here, or furthering my studies.
So you totally interested personally from the bottom of your heart, and also by work training, professional training, and all of that to be a medical doctor. You are on a fast speed train, but I'm going to say that did the speed train derail at some point? I think we need to talk about that as the subject proper here. Walk
Absolutely.
us through.
Absolutely. So just imagine, right? So I'm going to ask everyone listening to us to just imagine you're on a speed train, with your life.
Like all young people qualifying professionals, and just qualified, got a job, looking at careers, long-term futures. That's the speed train we are talking about. And in your case it derailed, but it didn't go into a crash situation. You sort of changed track. That's the story we want to talk about.
Absolutely. So I'm going on this speed train with my career, my life, blinkers on, just going forward. Suddenly it derails and my entire life pauses. What happened? And I was taken over by a condition where I suddenly, from a person, or I stopped being a person and became a condition. It dehumanized me, and that is how my story with art began. And that shift from being a person or being a doctor to becoming a patient to becoming a person again, and then finding my way to becoming a contemporary artist started.
Yeah. So let's look at this. The person, the medical doctor, becoming a patient in one scenario, and you became a condition or an object. Then how did you revert back to that person or a different person? So let's talk about the vasculitis, etc. Hopefully in a more plain English term, so that non-medical viewers will be able to understand. So what is vasculitis? What was your uh, the illness all about?
So yes, to begin with, yes, I will just briefly explain what vasculitis is. It's a rare autoimmune illness where the blood vessels in your body, whether it's small, large, medium size, any size blood vessels in all organs, are affected. So your immune system gets confused and starts attacking your own. So whether it's your skin, your lungs, your nerves, your kidneys. So any organ can be affected, and various parts of your body can be involved in this disease process. And it's one of those conditions, because it's rare and because it can mimic infections and other forms of illnesses, it takes quite a long time for people to align the dots. So that's why that's the tricky thing with vasculitis, because and it's an invisible illness unless certain things are outwardly a rash, for example, is seen, or someone gets a paralysis and you can see that. Apart from that, a lot of the time, it's people look outwardly okay, so it's invisible, and it takes a
So the
long time.
visual symptoms are very little, but it's inside you, right? And are there many people around the globe, perhaps that can start from the UK and Sri Lanka, that you are aware suffering from vasculitis?
Um, well, in the UK, a rare condition is, even though it's rare, 1 in 17 people can have a rare condition. So
Did you say 1 in 70 or 17?
17, not for particularly vasculitis, any rare condition. 1 in 17 people can have a rare condition in the UK, which is actually not rare when you go to with vasculitis. I'm right now with the statistics, I'm not fully aware how many people are affected in the UK. I think perhaps 1 in 100,000. I think.
So it's fair to say it's a rare disease, Shanali,
Yes.
as far as the numbers are concerned. So is there a medical cure for this, or is it a chronic illness that will continue?
There is no cure at the moment, and we don't know how people get it. In the sense is it's multifactorial, so you can't actually say it's genetic or there is no one particular factor, and it's controllable with medication depending on the severity of the illness. It can be so severe that it can kill you, or it can be, some people can have a mild prognosis, not prognosis, their journey with vasculitis can be not so severe, but some people can be at the extreme and then they can die very quickly from it.
Right.
It's one of those,
So, yeah, sorry. Go ahead. Yeah, you go ahead.
it's one of those conditions that, as I said, it can be mild and then evolve into something severe, or you can actually, it can kill you very quickly at the onset itself. So it's a lot of people go through that struggle of not being diagnosed early, or the mental trauma of, or something is going on, it's really vague, we don't know what it is. And I think that psychological component adds to that journey till a diagnosis is
Right. So, from the discovery of your illness, where the person became a condition, now, how did the condition within you, and how did you take control of that situation and transition back to that person, albeit in a different profession, or a vocation, or a pastime? I mean, you're no longer a medical doctor treating patients. Let's talk about that phase as well now.
absolutely. But I think I'm going to go back ever so slightly
Sure.
to sort of tell. I was to my training. So I was in my second year of specialist training as a rheumatology when I developed this condition. And
Right.
when I developed vasculitis, and I was actually subspecializing in vasculitis. So can you imagine how humbling it was for me to be a patient in my own specialty, and I was subspecializing in, and it forced me to quit my career, as we talked about, and
Where was this, Shanali? In
I was
Manchester or London?
in Birmingham. I was actually
In
training
Birmingham, right.
in Birmingham, and it took it just it came to a point where I couldn't continue with my training. So I had to quit my training. And at that point, it had robbed the vasculitis, the condition itself had robbed me of my freedom to move in every direction. And it fractured my image, my identity. And as I had mentioned before, it took over. I stopped being a person. So Shanali, the person, was gone. The condition had taken over. One moment I was seeing the struggles my patients were going through, and the next I was living it. So I was in my early 30s, Rohan, and it was almost like the house that I had built was bombed to the ground. It was, completely, it had
Just
crumbled.
shattered. Yeah.
Shattered. And and one who goes through this kind of journey is suddenly dealing with many layers at once. Your symptoms, your emotional state, stuff at work, relationships, socially, and you don't have a how to deal with it user guide. So it's like having 10 screens on your laptop open, and you're trying to navigate through it all, and you don't know how. So that itself is such a challenge. And of course, as I said, I was in my early 30s. There's lots of social expectations and pressures on you, and I felt really trapped. And how does one make sense of it? And it took years for me to get on the right management, let alone get a diagnosis. And in that time period, I think initially I may have mentioned it or not, it takes about 3 to 4 years on average for people to get diagnosed. And for me, my symptoms started in 2009. And by the time I actually got the label as vasculitis, it was 2014. It was quite a long time. And,
5-year period.
and in that time frame, of course, I had when I had to kind of quit my medical training and walk away, which was in 2012. It was almost, you can only imagine that my identity was all about being a doctor, doing what I was doing, and suddenly to walk away from that, it's almost like my dreams, if all my expectations just went out of the window. But there was a fight, because it was almost, I didn't fit into any box. I was an atypical patient, I didn't fit in. So the mental trauma of, not getting a diagnosis or not knowing what's going on, there was a period where I thought, am I imagining this? Am I making, is this all in my head? And that was really, really bad, because no one knew what I had to go through on a daily basis, or the behind the scenes.
This is the point that, it's an interesting point that you are at, the empathy, the compassion, the understanding by others without seeing the symptoms on the face of it, on the body, so to speak. That could have been quite a strong moment psychologically for you.
Absolutely. And prior to me quitting, Rohan, prior to me having to walk out, I was in a full-time training job. So I had changed from full-time to part-time, half full-time to half, what do you call that? Less than full-time, right? Part-time, yeah, that's right. And just to give you a small example, to drive a 20-minute distance, it took me 2 hours, because I had to take back roads and my legs would be going numb and dead every few minutes. I had to stop the car and go. And rest a bit. When I get the life back in my legs, I would drive. So it took, I was doing various little things like this just to get to work. I'm right-handed, and my symptoms came on the right hand. So I learned to write from my left. And I told, people at work, now I can write from my left. I want to be at work. So I did, every possible thing that I could do to try and be at work. But then, that's why when I said when I walk away, yes, I felt everything, my dreams were shattered, but I knew that I had no regrets because I tried everything I possibly can, and this was out of my control.
So this is the second phase you're starting. So the condition, and you needed to adapt to that condition and continue to live a life. So you are a right-handed person writing, but you adapted and became very good, I guess, at writing with now both your hands, if not with your left hand. So walk us through again how you overcame that condition, how you adapted to it.
Absolutely. Unfortunately for me, the symptoms came to my left side as well. I was anyway, and so I had quit my job, and I was going through the phase of being completely lost. And I realized in those initial years, I quit my job in 2012. So it took a couple of years where I was feeling lost and thought, I can't control how my disease how my disease is evolving, or my day. And I had on my phone, the Viber has this doodle thing. So there were days, fatigue is a massive component of vasculitis, as well as certain elements of pain. So when you're fatigued, and when I say fatigued in Sinhala, they have this word called tehetua. It's
Yes,
like
they
having
had
the
to.
flu, the flu all the time, right? Or your mobile phone battery has gone to like 2 or 3%, so you have to recharge in bed. So I was in bed a lot of the time in the initial years, and what can you do? You can't concentrate, you can't do anything. So I started to just doodle on my phone, and then there was an app, and I started to draw on my phone, and that's when I realized I can't control how my day is going, but I can control what I create. And that certainly was the turning point for me. The creative process allowed me to focus on what I can do versus what I can't. And this is how the art side came in, or the artistic, as I said, creative, the art helped me to find my way back to being a person again by
Yeah,
giving.
so as a mode of expression, but this is the same artistic talent that you explained initially during school and all of that. You had participated in many uh, outside of learning events. So this came back again as the channeling of the creativity into art.
Absolutely. And it slightly different to what I had drawn in school. I was more of a realistic, I was doing charcoal and pencil. At this point in time, so my fingers also would go very quickly. It would fatigue very quickly. So I couldn't hold a paintbrush or a pen and do this. So the on the phone, drawing something on the phone was easy. I could use both hands of my hands, and and draw on the phone. And uh, art allowed me to find my way back as a person again by giving visibility, meaning, and the freedom to express what I was going through. So being able to paint or draw my pain is something invisible. Fatigue is invisible, right? Our experience is invisible. But being able to draw it, put a shape, a form to it, allowed me to understand and accept it better. And also it took the focus away from it. So the pain pathway is shares the same, our body shares the same. When we are creating something, it shares the same pathway as the pain. So when you're in pain and then you're starting to draw something, it actually confuses the brain. So it was a perfect way of taking the focus away from the pain and drawing something. And it also allowed me to communicate with myself and others what the illness impact had on me, which has actually very helpful, because sometimes you cannot explain something, you have no words to explain, but you can show This is what it was really like.
So
And
how do you save the expressions through art? Do you save them and to show people, or you just simply do it on a telephone these days?
um, I do it, well, these days I have evolved to a different place, but just before I get there, I need to tell you something. How I started to evolve with that, or I would save it on the app, and then I went on from digital to acrylic over a number of years, of course, after my condition became more stable. I have to mention this point now, Rohan. The illness continues to distort my reality and it disempowers me. In turn, I learned to distort the illness reality by channeling the pain I feel in my hands, what I'm going through, onto my canvas. Initially, it was digital, now it's acrylic on canvas.
Right.
And that way, I transform that pain into something beautiful. And this is
Let's
how,
hear about it
sorry?
more.
Yes, this
Let's hear about it more or in detail.
so this also, before I tell you the stuff I create, that process, this is how I'm evolving with the pain. And this is what's very important for people going through this journey to know, that sometimes, whether it's vasculitis, whether it's any long-term health condition, mental or physical, having a tool to help cope, help understand, whether it's gardening, whether it's music, whether it's dance, anything, actually help. It's in your tool belt, to move forward. And for me, evolving this way with my pain, it's embracing it. It's embracing the condition. This is who I am now. That embrace helped me to regain a sense of control. Perhaps I forgot to say that in the beginning when I said, I think I did mention I lost control. And for someone to move forward with any long-term illness, it's very important to have that sense of control, because you can't control other elements, but at least have something. And I managed to kind of being defined by the illness. So, that condition that was defining me, I defied it. And this is how that whole mantra of I'm not the illness, I'm a person, first came. And this is how, and that process is what led to what I'm doing with my art, and the book I created, etc. So yes.
So let's look at the art now, your creativity and the acrylic paintings and the various. Have you written books, or you sort of promoted certain books? So how on this point, sort of putting out in the open about more information about the vasculitis illness?
Yes, absolutely. So during the COVID time, I was um, I was one of those people who were extremely vulnerable, so I had to shield for quite a long time at home.
Of course.
So
Yes.
I had an idea of putting all my digital stuff onto, and creating a visual narrative of how my journey had been. So that time period was perfect for me to put everything together, and I published this book as. It was
Can you bring it more towards the computer? Right. So finding me beyond illness, my creative story, exploring art, illness, and identity. Dr. Shanali Perera. So this is something that you started writing during the COVID period, during the
That's
confined period that we all went through, the whole world.
absolutely. I mean, I had been having, slowly working towards something, but that time period just gave me more of an incentive, because you're stuck at home and you're trying to do that. And I don't know whether this would be something that you can see, but I really want to um, show you this. Can you see?
We can see. Yeah.
So I told you initially, that I was feeling trapped.
You're trapped inside. Yeah. Hmm.
And so that's a very personal a piece for me, because that's, the barbed wire and feeling trapped by, the expectations and everything around me. So that was quite, I'm very proud of that piece. So I put all my thoughts, I do write as well. So my poems, my all sorts of ideas into the book, and it came out in 2022. But unfortunately, I got COVID while trying to, as the book was published and while trying to launch it. So it took me a year and more to recover. I was very ill. So only in 2023, I started to slowly kind of, get the book out. And, so that's.
Very good. So time is catching up on our recording. So what's your message to the viewers at large, as well as those who are undergoing or suffering from the condition of vasculitis, Shanali?
So I think one of the things I would really like to emphasize is that I think it's very self-management on top of other medications and therapies to kind of manage, or having a tool to manage your day-to-day is very important. As I had earlier said, having a tool that's part of you that you can escape to, whether it can be cooking or gardening or anything. And for people who are not going through the journey, but who know people going through that journey, I think it's also important for them to be aware that certain illnesses are invisible. You may look well, they may look well for a few hours, but for them to do so, they may have been in bed all day, resting, and then the next day again they might have to recharge. So it's a challenging phase, and a lot of the time I hear people look at me and say, "Oh, you look so well, you can get back to going to work," but
Yeah.
they're not aware of the hidden challenges that are which are part of the day to day. And my mission with my art, and especially what I'm doing now with the acrylic on canvas, is to help people to understand illness visually, to actually connect with that experience, feel it, and support others who are going through that, to be inspired and empowered to think, okay, we can do this too. And I think the other thing that I would really, or something I'm working on, is to reduce the gap between the understanding that the medical profession has versus the gap between the medical focus of the disease and the patient experience with illness, with art. Because what you can't see, the hidden challenges, perhaps can be made visible by making it more tangible. So if I asked you and the viewers now to put a color and shape to paint, you've all had a headache or a toothache or something. Can you think of a color or a shape to it? And then, make it more tangible. And by making it more tangible, would it help you to better understand it? Or someone who's going through that, will you be able to change your perception? So that is the question, or that is food for thought, actually, for everyone.
Very good. So I think it's very important that from being a doctor to a patient, but using your both professional and the overall knowledge that you had of the illness and the condition. I don't know whether you realize this. You're still, to me, a medical doctor reporting back, feedback, informing others of the condition through a different channel, albeit not medical, but this time it's art and various other channels to explore that and put it before our viewers as well as the general public. Before I conclude, can I just ask, the United Kingdom has a social net, a structure to look after people, in this particular case, patients who wouldn't necessarily have all the aspects, the health aids, AIDS at home. In Sri Lanka, of course, we have the extended family culture that also is fast disappearing because of the way we are structured in our economy, which is a normal thing. Now, in the absence of a family-based culture where one can talk to one's parents, family, etc., how does the United Kingdom system deal with or assist uh, people, or how did they assist you rather?
A really good question, and I forgot to cover that earlier on.
No, that's absolutely fine because the United Kingdom boasts about a good social care system. No doubt we have almost 65 million people, and it's at almost explosion point. But walk us through.
Yeah, so there is a charity organization called Vasculitis UK, and they have a Facebook group as well, and they have a helpline. So anyone who's newly diagnosed or who's continuing with their treatment, etc., can call the helpline for advice, and they helped me to hope in many ways. I contributed with my art. I was actually to generate awareness of what vasculitis is really. And this is their, they have
So it's
about
Vasculitis Awareness Month, right? So it's a newsletter, sort of a journal. So who does publish this for the benefit of
vasculitis,
viewers?
vasculitis
I see. Vasculitis UK is the one that you need to do a Google search. So that's a sort of a broad-based, UK-based charity-based foundation that assists people with vasculitis.
That's right. They have a website that gives you the information about what vasculitis is and what you need to know. And they have a helpline. All those details are on their website. And twice a year is biannual, isn't it? So twice a year, the newsletter come out, and May, yeah. So during that month of May, there's a lot of awareness about vasculitis and what it is, just so that people at work, people who are your friends and family, might get a better idea of, oh, what is it like to live with something that's rare versus something that people hear about all the time. If someone in a taxi asks me, a taxi driver says, oh, taking me to the hospital, asks, oh, what do you have? And I say vasculitis. I've
No idea.
no one has ever heard what that is, right?
Yeah.
It's and that's a nice way of spreading awareness as well, because just generally talking to people about it. But in the UK, we have this support system for people, and there is something also called Rare Diseases UK that also promote. In February, in the month of February, they do a massive campaign for anyone who's going through a rare disease. And for people with arthritis, there's Versus Arthritis, which is a site that they can go to. Anyone in the world go to it, and you don't have to be UK based. People from Sri Lanka or anywhere can actually go on Facebook or go on site and access. Yes.
Right.
So it gives you a lot of information. And there is one other point that, if I may quickly tell.
Sure.
I forgot to mention the stereotyping and the stigma. There is stereotyping where people put you in a box sometimes, and then if you're a certain age, you fit these criteria, and or so because of that stereotyping, sometimes it every time I went to A&E prior to my diagnosis, I was a medical registrar, so I was a junior doctor doing medicine. So oh yeah, female doctor, stress. This is all stress. So, kind of got stereotyped into that. And even in Sri Lanka, I think people are afraid to talk about what they're going through because there's a lot of stigma attached to illness. And I think every opportunity I get to speak to an audience, I do want to touch on this subject and raise awareness that, don't be afraid to talk about what you have. I talk about what I have just to encourage others to talk about what they go through, because it's very important for people around us to know that, we face various challenges mentally, physically. It's not just the physical illness, it's emotional as well. And every day is a challenge, but we are yet, we're trying to move forward and not forget, that through adversity, there's always, to see the beauty through adversity and turning a negative into positive. But it's very difficult sometimes to do that when, when the perception of others with your illness or how they see you is so different to how you see you. So I think that is something, I know there's a bit of verbal diarrhea there, trying to give.
No, it's absolutely, I'm going to say, fascinating in a very positive context. Looking at where there was positivity that went to negativity, and you taken control of that negativity, turned it into yet again positivity from a different angle, and that angles, I should say, that is the taking control of the condition or the illness, then feedback to both the medical profession as well as others who may have this medical condition. So authored number of books and created certain areas in art, acrylics, and with Google based and so on. So I think it's the positivity that you are showing and you continue to show is the most important fact that we need to take out from this very interesting discussion. So, Shanali, thank you so much for taking part in this interview, sharing everything that you know about the condition, and also, of course, talking about yourself and how you took control of that situation. All the very best to you in all your future endeavors. Thank you, Shan.
Thank you, Rohan, for having me, and I go on to you all.
Thank you. Hi, Bowen.